Some crises are pretty black and white. There's a clear right answer and the wrong one. This, well, this is not one of those stories. Today, we're digging into a hijacking that forced a government to choose between two moral rights, a decision with a price that is, believe it or not, still being paid today. So let's get into how this all unfolded. And this quote, it really gets you right into the head of the man at the center of this storm, Jaswant Singh, who was India's external affairs minister at the time. This one line just perfectly captures his own personal struggle, and really the agonizing dilemma the entire Indian government was up against. It's a journey from total certainty to a compromise that would haunt him for the rest of his life. 7 days. Think about that. That's how long this whole ordeal lasted. A full week where the fate of almost 200 people just hung in the balance. It was a week of unbelievable pressure, fear, and just impossible choices, all playing out on the world stage right as the new millennium was about to kick off. Okay, so let's set the scene. The date is December 24th, 1999, Christmas Eve. Flight IC-814 takes off from Kathmandu, Nepal on its way to Delhi. But just 40 minutes into the flight, bam, 5 armed men storm the cockpit. For the 178 passengers and 11 crew on board, what was supposed to be a normal holiday flight, well, it turned into an absolute nightmare. So to really get why the politicians in New Delhi made the choices they did, we first have to understand the absolutely harrowing journey of that plane and the people who were trapped inside. This right here, this traces a frantic, desperate path all across Asia, from Nepal into India, then a mad dash to Pakistan, a quick stop in the UAE, and then finally, Kandahar, Afghanistan. But look closer at that second stop, Amritsar, India. For 45 agonizing minutes, that plane was on Indian soil. Jaswant Singh himself remembers yelling down the phone, "Do anything, don't let the aircraft leave Amritsar." But it did. And that was India's one and only real chance to end the crisis on its own terms. It just slipped through their fingers. And just to prove they were serious, the hijackers, who were members of the militant group Harkat-ul-Mujahideen, they turned to brutal violence. They stabbed a 25-year-old passenger, a man named Rupin Katyal. Just imagine this, he was on his way home from his honeymoon. He would be the first and only person killed, but his death sent a chilling message to the negotiators. The clock was ticking, and they were not messing around. So what did they want? Well, here are their initial demands. And they were huge. They wanted the release of 36 militants from Indian jails. They wanted a massive cash ransom, $200 million. And they even wanted the body of a fellow militant dug up and returned. And the Indian cabinet's first reaction? A hard no. On everything. And this is where we get to the real heart of the crisis. This profound national dilemma that was staring the decision makers in New Delhi right in the face. Just look at the tightrope the government was walking here. On one side, you've got the state's duty to be strong, to stick to your policy of never, ever negotiating with terrorists. You can't set a precedent that just encourages more attacks, right? But on the other side, you have a much more immediate duty, to save the lives of 166 innocent people. So what do? Risk every single person on that plane, or compromise your principles and unleash dangerous men back into the world? And the pressure wasn't just happening behind closed doors. Oh no, it was intensely public. The families of the hostages were understandably desperate. They were out on the streets holding demonstrations, blocking roads, even storming press briefings. When Jaswant Singh finally came back with the freed hostages, he wasn't exactly met with a hero's welcome. Instead, one mother grabbed him and screamed this right at him. It's just this raw, painful reminder of the very human stakes of the government's decision. And this is the question that Jaswant Singh himself posed in his memoirs. He said it wasn't about choosing between right and wrong. It was about choosing between two different kinds of right. The right of standing firm against terror versus the right of saving a human life. A life that, once it's gone, can never be brought back. So what do you do when both paths are morally defensible, but you can only pick one? Well, in the end, a choice was made. And that brings us to the final act of this crisis, the resolution, and the very, very heavy price that came along with it. So on New Year's Eve of all days, the standoff ended. After days and days of tense negotiations, with the Taliban actually mediating in Kandahar, the Indian government agreed to a trade. That initial demand for 36 militants, it was negotiated all the way down to just 3. But here's the thing. These weren't just any 3 prisoners. They were a top ideologue, a hardened operative, and a senior commander. men chosen very specifically for their value to the militant cause. And what happened after these 3 men walked free? Well, that's the most devastating part of this whole story. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new, even more violent chapter. Maulana Masood Azhar almost immediately founded Jaish-e-Mohammed, which means the Army of Muhammad, a terror group that would go on to attack the Indian parliament just 2 years later. Then you have Ahmed Omar Saeed Sheikh. He orchestrated the horrific murder of journalist Daniel Pearl and was even suspected of having financial links to the 9/11 attacks. The cost of saving 166 lives was, so tragically, the loss of many, many more in the years that followed. That moment of relief when the hostages were freed on New Year's Eve, it must have been immense. But the long-term legacy of the Kandahar hijack was one of violence, blame, and really difficult questions that still hang in the air today. The fallout from this decision was just profound and far-reaching. First off, it was a huge wake-up call. It exposed some serious flaws in India's ability to respond to a crisis like this. Second, it directly led to the birth of a brand new and incredibly lethal terror group, Jaish-e-Mohammed. It also added a ton of fuel to allegations of involvement by Pakistan's powerful intelligence agency, the ISI, charges, of course, the Pakistan has always denied. And finally, it sparked this political debate inside India that honestly has never really gone away. Did they make the right call? So we're going to end right back where we started, with Jaswant Singh's own words. Even he, the man who personally flew to Kandahar to make the trade and bring the hostages home, was left with this haunting question. What do you call it? A rescue mission? An act of appeasement? A flight to compromise? Or maybe, was it a flight into a future that was shaped by the impossible choice he was forced to make? It's a question that, even now, has no simple answer.